Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of Highly Unlikely with Josh and Jenaye and another friend. And this is a great one today. We're going to welcome our friend Brian Jackson to the conversation. But we're not going to do that thing of like, tell us a little about your life. We're just going to go straight to the bowl, get to the real stuff.
Full of questions.
Let's do it.
Let's go from the middle. I'm feeling the middle today.
Yeah.
All right. When are you the most happy?
Oh, that's pretty easy. In the summertime, Lake Sakakawea.
Yes.
So this area is like the center of my recreation. So
Yes.
I love being on the lake. I personally love underwater spearfishing. So
Oh my goodness.
that's my sport of choice. So if I can, that's even why I
Do you
have
need
the company
scuba
here.
gear to do that? Like a breathing, like oxygen?
Some people do. Scuba diving is fun, but for me, it's like free diving.
Wowzers.
Yeah.
So like if like a true apocalypse happens, we will need your hunting skills.
Yeah,
right?
your
Like,
spearfishing
we'll
skills.
need your spearfishing skills.
I've never thought of it that way.
You have true life survival skills.
Yeah,
That's great.
no, it's a lot of fun. My dad started doing it, and we used to swim together, and like kind of it's the perfect combination between someone who likes to fish and someone who likes to swim. It's just that sport. It's really niche, and
So how do you swim once you get a fish?
well, it's like a gun with rubber bands, and so with
I
a
don't
string
know. I have
attached.
no
A gun
clue
with
about
rubber
this.
bands.
Like a rubber band gun, a spear will shoot out
Like a
with
Triton?
attached to a. No. It's a gun
Okay,
with
we're
a
a
spear.
non-hunting family. Okay, we're like no
What
dead
does the
animals.
spear look like? It's not like a regular spear. It's like,
it's like an arrow. It's like
it
a metal
is.
arrow.
don't
Yep.
some people use like is that
A
what they're called?
trident? Yeah.
A trident?
Well, like what you're saying. I mean, it would
is
be.
that a gum or a
Okay,
No, it would be
weapon?
like-
I literally just Googled it. See,
Yes.
just-
Okay,
Is
okay,
that
okay.
it? Is
that's
that the
what it
premise?
is. But a lot of people spear fish from the ice.
Oh,
And
yeah,
this
yeah.
this would be more in the summer on
You
soft
get
water.
in the water.
Yeah.
Wow,
That's when I'm happiest.
that is so cool.
Fully alive.
So in Sakakawea, what's the largest creature you've seen being in the water?
Actually, last summer I saw a paddlefish, and that it was kind of unusual to see it in the lake. I know they're there, but it was just in like 8 feet of water, and it was about 6.5, 7 feet long, maybe.
That's as tall as me.
Yeah. So I just
What? See, now
kind
I'm
of
getting
How,
like
how,
paddlefish.
how big around?
I mean, it
And are
was.
they like-
I don't know. I didn't.
Are
touch
they
it or anything.
lean or are they like?
No, yeah, it's like a 7th grader swimming through the water. Yeah,
That's
it was really cool.
I am actually quite afraid of swimming in bodies of water due to fish, and so that makes me not want to go
Yeah,
in water.
That was really, I mean, out of all the dives that I'd ever done, that was just cool. I was out there swimming alone, and I just got out of the water, just screaming like that was so cool.
out of that
So-
because you were excited.
Yes,
See, my
because I
scream
was
could be very different.
If you haven't learned yet today, Jenaye views the world through a filter of safety and security. So when she finds out somebody can fish, she's
I
like,
do.
"Oh, I can use them in the apocalypse."
Yes,
you know,
like,
or
yes, it's-
running away from huge.
It's so true. Yes, it's so true.
So as a fisherman, was it actually 6.5 or 7 feet, or was it more like?
well, I mean, that's the question.
Right.
Right. Yeah,
Nobody
right.
really
Well,
knows.
paddlefish can get up to 6 feet.
Interesting.
And it's underwater. Who knows?
Right,
But it
exactly.
was as
was
big as
big.
me down there. So
It's about
Oh my gosh.
this.
oh, it
If
was
you're watching
cool.
online.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. My most happy at this season of life is in a clean, quiet home with no one else there. Truly, with a good book.
We live in a constant state of overstimulation.
Literally, I have earplugs to keep my sanity in my home. So I would say, just due to my season of life, that's when I'm most happy now. Sounds like I don't love my family. I love them dearly. I also love quiet a lot
Yeah.
now.
I would say I just love sitting at the beach looking at it, looking at the ocean.
Yeah.
That's probably like the most calm, cool, collected, focused, reflective space for me. So
Right.
I'm pretty happy. Sometimes I come back from the ocean and the staff are like, "Why are you in such a good mood?" I'm like, "I saw the ocean yesterday." I'm like, "I'm feeling great."
God's sense of humor of where he's placed
And
you.
now, and we
Right.
live in North Dakota.
Yep.
Brian, what's like the most, so we're talking about full send this season, which like doing things without abandon, all in,
Yeah.
regardless of consequences. What's like the most full send thing that you can share that you've ever done?
I have friends who are extreme.
Yeah.
And watching those guys is nuts. But
You're medium extreme?
I wouldn't say.
Okay.
Like personally, I wouldn't say. Like spearfishing is maybe it seems extreme, but once you're in it, it's not. I have a friend who I went to high school with who's like a caver, and so he like explores caves.
wow.
And he took me and a friend caving one time, and I would say that's the thing. We went into Tongue River
Like what
Cave.
those 13 soccer players
Is
got
this
trapped
in water?
Like a water diving cave thing.
Yeah, like a
like-
cave.
Worst nightmare.
Okay, but is
You
it
could get
above
stuck.
water or underwater?
That had a river going through it, so there was like a spot where there was like a wall
It's gonna
here and
hate
a wall
me.
here, and
My
we were
hands and feet are sweating.
so I was claustrophobic.
For real.
When I entered
Yes.
the cave, and it kind of broke me. But I went with a couple
Of your
friends. and I was like,
claustrophobia
yes.
or broke you emotionally?
very much both. And so I went in, I was like, I'm not going to do this with you guys. It's too extreme. But they're like, well, come in just a little ways and see what it's like. And so then we were in a room. This is a long time ago, but we were in a room there. And they're like, okay, shut off your light so you can conserve battery. We're going to go this way. And my decision was, is it better to be alone wondering where your friends are, or go
Right.
with? So I went along, and there was a waterfall there. That was the most extreme thing I've done. And to him who,
Right.
ice climbs and all that kind of stuff, it was nothing to him.
another
But to
day at
me,
the office.
yeah,
Right.
that was wild.
Wow.
Wow.
We're so boring. And I love
That's
our
not
life.
true.
We're not super adventurous.
We're not.
but-
So I'm like, this is really cool to hear. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think one thing that we appreciate about you is not only do you enjoy those things as hobbies, but you've really kind of translated that into your everyday life. And so I can just speak for our church, and Brian has had a huge role in just Joy House Coffee and supporting us and helping us and just being a voice of clarity as we've been trying to figure out. We're pastors and stuff over here, and then having people who are experts and entrepreneurs who come in and say, hey, here's how to think, here's what to do. And you just using that gift even to serve the church is a beautiful thing. And I think sometimes people think, oh, in order to serve the church or be a part, I have to be able to speak, sing, or serve coffee or, something like that. But like you've used your gift to be a blessing.
Oh, that's my honor. Yeah.
And not just us, but even I think our community looks at you as
Right.
somebody to aspire to be like, to take a step of faith, to do something, to follow a dream rather than just like the plug and play, here's how you
Yeah.
go through life.
Oh, that's very kind.
Well, it's true.
Yeah,
And I think
that's
it's
what
what
I'm thinking.
it's part of what we want to unearth today, because I know there's other people that have dreams in their hearts who maybe think, how do I go about actually doing that? Or
Right.
is that even realistic? And so I relate to you too, because I'm from a small town in North Dakota,
Yeah.
Glen Ellen,
Hazen.
Hazen. We were like played basketball, our town.
Hey, Mayville, hello.
Mayville.
We have a
You're-
stoplight, though.
you guys
We're on a different
barely
level.
qualify
That's a
as
different-
We had an
Yeah.
Alco.
and you're in
growing
the
up.
thousands population,
Yeah,
I don't-
when
is Hazen
college is
over
in
1,000?
session.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
2,500.
Is it? Okay,
Kinda,
you guys
yeah.
don't count
Oh,
either.
that is. No, yeah.
But
No.
no traffic light, no Dairy Queen. So
Oh, man.
Yeah, it
It's
doesn't
a different
count.
class.
Yeah.
But why we wanted to have you on the podcast is really, you started Mighty Missouri Coffee, Mighty Mo, as we say. And we just want to hear really your story behind that and the dream placed in your heart and how God, allowed it to come to fruition and happen. Would you say that was a pretty full send thing, starting your business and company?
yeah, well, it absolutely was, and it was one of those things that like I didn't know what I was getting into exactly when you start. So it was like I was in marketing. And,
Okay, yeah.
and
Take us back like
communications.
one
Right,
year
right.
before
Yeah.
Mighty
Yeah.
Mo happens. What are
Yeah.
you doing?
I was working at a place called Frontier Precision in town. I was kind of like the marketing department or something. And I really enjoyed communications and that kind of thing. And in my spare time, I'm kind of building a brand. And just to exercise those muscles. And this was, in my mind, Mighty Missouri blank company. I didn't really, coffee wasn't filling in that blank yet. But it was just, I was
Why
interested
Mighty
in that.
Missouri? What led you there?
Well, so I had a friend who started doing like craft brews and stuff, and
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, you should you should do something and then, make it like Bismarck, Mighty Missouri, do a steamboat or something. And he was like, haha. And I was like, yeah, I think that's a really good idea.
I actually really like what I just said.
I like my own idea.
So, are you sure you're not going to take that?
That is
So I was interested in like triathlon and swimming, and I just kind of was dabbling. I've had an entrepreneurial like spirit since I was young. In high school, I had action paintball supply because paintball was big and no one could get it in Hazen, So it's like, I'll fill tanks. We'll just all go play. And so I was just, it was out of that I was building something in my mind. And there were some people that were doing a coffee roasting business in a small town, and they were in South Dakota. And I just was like interested in what they were doing. And I thought maybe in my spare time, because I'll keep my day job, they could roast coffee and I could just have maybe a brand of coffee and put it out there. That was like as far as it went in my mind.
Did you love coffee or did you see an opportunity, or both?
Both. So I didn't know coffee at all. It was completely utilitarian. Like my dad growing up was a doctor and drank like A&W, those huge root beer mugs. I mean, he would fill it with coffee and have one of those before he left for work and then fill another one for on his way to work, and then he'd drink through the day. So that's kind of like
In an A&W mug.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And he was a cyclist too, so he would bring water bottles out on his bike, on the road bike, and there wasn't one water bottle that didn't have like a coffee tinge flavor to it, because he'd bring one cage would have water in it and one cage would have hot coffee. So it was very much a part of our lives. My mom doesn't drink coffee to this day, but
that is so funny.
But that was kind of what it was for me. And I was just, the more I was like job shadowed these people, and the more I kind of stepped into it, the deeper it got. Like the opportunity kind of presented itself.
Yeah.
I was 24 when I made the decision to start something. And 24, it's like zero responsibilities. If not now, then when was kind of. So I'm really blessed that that's when it all kind of happened. But at the same time, I mean, I was so naive. Like I didn't know what I didn't know. So I could easily talk to myself back then and talk myself out of it because I didn't know what I was getting into. And so you take these little steps, and it's like there's kind of mountains in the way. And that's been the experience since.
So there's kind of like a dream in your heart. You start to develop a brand, think about it. You're shadowing people, like trying to figure out, like, how does this work? And could this be the thing?
Yeah.
Right. And then what happens that it's like, oh, this is going to be the thing?
So my dad, I was kind of talking to him about this opportunity, and then I went and actually took a class somewhere else. It's with some other people, and I kind of realized that roasting was going to have to be the thing. Like I would have to roast the coffee, manufacture the coffee. There was a business side to that because I can't just be a middleman, but also just introducing the craft. And I fell in love with that, like the science and art of making coffee. So
if you did not know, there's a science behind coffee.
Yeah.
Like it really is.
Yeah.
It's not just like.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. The recipes that we come up with, I mean, the time and temperature, and we have roasting curves, and we're watching computers as we go.
That's crazy.
It is. And I just fell in love with that process. And so I told my dad I was kind of thinking about this, and he actually flew out with me to Boston where another class was, and he learned to roast with me. And so I was just thinking of getting started in a really super small scale, and he helped me get started with the roaster that we had trained on. And I think with maybe an eye to more what I'm getting myself into than I had specifically. And so that's kind of how I like stair-stepped in, and I had made a business plan that's laughable today. I mean, it's like, shred that document. I'm keeping it because it's cute. But other than that, like, it's cringe. But in that, I'd kind of, my whole plan was like, the heart of it was building a brand, which is a heavier lift than I had expected. But I wanted people to like desire Mighty Missouri coffee. Like I want that coffee and I'm going to pick that. And a lot of the way that the business works is it's wholesale and it's private label. And so people don't necessarily know in the end that it's Mighty Missouri, but I wanted like an outlet for that. And in big cities, you'd, make it available in Whole Foods and whatever. We didn't really have, don't have that here and didn't then especially. So what we did have was like Dan's supermarkets, and there was, I don't remember, 6, 7 locations in different towns too. And so I contacted them, like the buyer there, and just said, hey, this is what I'm up to, and I'm going to have this product. Just wondering if you're interested. And the guy I talked to was like, yeah, it sounds great. We'd be cool. Enough for me to just like check it off and okay, we'll be available in these Dan supermarkets and things. And it took a long time from that point until we actually had like the roaster set up and the packaged bag. And I kind of put a lot of eggs in that basket, but I wouldn't recommend this is how you start a business. But once I finally had that product, I called him back, and we'd kind of been in touch, but I called him back and like, hey, it's Brian Jackson, Mighty Missouri Coffee. I have a product for you. We'd talked, and he's like, the coffee shelves are pretty full. Like it's super tight competition, and we're going to pass on a new product. And I was like, to me, thinking this is what I was meant to do, and literally day one, like you jump off the precipice, and it's like, oh, actually, you can't sell your coffee.
Was that like the first big setback for you?
Outside of like all of these construction, I mean, the smoke and the exhaust and things with that roaster is like, it came in an elephant crate in 100 pieces and no manual.
My word.
I was very immediately overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so that was a process. That was something else. But outside of that, yeah, the first very big, like heart sinking kind of thing. Like first I feel very like I put myself out there, indebted to my parents, and like I have to pay this roaster off as well and get this thing going. So then it was like, well, the real heart behind it was that I wanted to build a brand, and the brand that's kind of off now. And so I was like, well, we've got the product. Can I just bring it to you and set it on your desk? And he's like, we're going to pass on a meeting. So it was like very final. And then that same week was, as I'm kind of building things, and I still had part-time jobs and working freelance and stuff, but I was like officially launching,
Yeah.
That same week I was helping Naomi Damshin, who worked at North Dakota Teen Challenge, and they had Matthew West coming for, he was at Shiloh School and playing there, and just needed like a runner or something, like a volunteer. And so it's like a cool thing to do and an opportunity for me to wear my shiny new Mighty Missouri t-shirt and like hot off the press. And so I went there, and Matthew West came in and like thanked all the volunteers. He was a super cool guy. And he's like, hey, what's this? Is this a local thing? Looking at my shirt. I was like, it's my coffee roaster. And he's like, oh, cool. Is it your dream? And I'm like, yeah, it's my dream. And he's like, well, I like the shirt. I want one. So I didn't have those shirts even printed yet. This was like the sample to decide if I wanted to get more.
Were you like,
Rip my shirt
I should have.
Here it is.
And instead what I did, I called Dakota Screen Arts where it was, and I guessed his size, and I raced down there, grabbed one and brought it back. And then I gave it to the tour manager, and I was like, I think Matthew West wants this.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be a bad thing for him to have the shirt. And then that night, he was under his leather jacket. You can see he's wearing the shirt, Mighty Missouri Coffee, which is just so cool. And so I was just freaking out with my friends, and that was just really cool. And then he took his jacket off, and he's like, Mighty Missouri Coffee, this is my favorite brand of coffee.
oh my God.
And then he said, my friend is opening a Mighty Missouri Coffee here. And he talked about it for like 2 minutes on stage.
What?
I couldn't have talked to him more than like 20 seconds. And he like he hadn't ever met me before, but he called me his friend, you know, it was very sweet of him.
Yeah.
And so the whole thing was just like a gift.
Right.
And it felt like it was sponsored by Mighty Missouri. He called back to it later, like, forgot a lyric. I need more Mighty Missouri coffee, you know, it was very kind. And so then I had a website and a lot of attention was drawn kind of immediately that way. And so people were emailing me, like a lot of people were emailing me through the website, like, where can we get Mighty Missouri coffee? And so I responded to everyone and I was like, ask Dan Supermarkets, because I knew that if they're out of something and you want, like, they're really good to get it. And so I had a call like a week or two after that. And the same guy called me and was like, hey, I hear you're doing coffee. We'd be really interested. And
Did
Did he not know it was the same person?
No, not even close.
Did he not realize it was the same person?
I don't know. I'll have to find.
Interesting.
This is a great story.
It's a great story.
I owe him a cup of coffee because that it was really cool. But I was really pushing. Like, I had Mighty Mo, Mighty Morning, and Mighty Moonrise. Like 3 SKUs of coffee that I was just trying to, like, please get these on the shelves. It wasn't like going to be a living for me, but I wanted people to know. Like, it's a billboard.
Yeah.
And every Dan Supermarket gave me like an entire shelf. I mean, it was beyond what I had asked for.
Right.
And so that's kind of how it started. And then I would be in my little Ford Escape, I would bring like a box every Friday, like this big, and I'd be behind like Pepsi trailers and all these behind all these pallets, and I would just be standing in line with my box of like 6 coffees. Like it was weird. It was wild. But
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
So when at that point, I just gotta highlight too, it's kind of cool that in your dream, God like brought people along
Right.
who
Very much.
who helped you like cross
Matthew West.
Yeah, like, well, and your dad.
Yeah.
You know, like
Right.
jumping on the plane with you and helping make it happen. And like how because sometimes we have a dream and we think, how am I going to do this? How's this all going to happen? And some of us, maybe you're like, I'm not really a visionary. I'm not really a dreamer, but you can help somebody else,
Right.
you know, to get where they're going.
Very much,
And
yeah.
to like, so that's cool. Like that there was people that helped to do that. So once it was on the shelves, like, did it immediately take off or was it like little by little?
Yeah, I mean, I quickly learned like that this wasn't going to be like a snap your fingers, this
Right.
is a living. One of the things that was the hardest early on was, I mean, the vision is you want to make a lot of money, you want to build a team, and you want everyone to be paid really well. Well, I wasn't being paid, and I can't hire someone else, you know. So it was like in the early days, it was demanding a lot of my time, but it wasn't my full-time job. And there was no one else. And I'm a big like team person. So it would be like going to this big empty room, flicking on the lights, and like just, I mean, it was hard. It was very lonely,
Right.
and made more lonely just by the fact that I really genuinely didn't know what I was doing. You know, like you want these things to grow, but you're kind of airing out all these different avenues.
Right.
Like, could it this way, and a lot of dreams, a lot of visions that like, well, I guess that clearly wasn't the direction. And honestly, there's 1,000 reasons why Mighty Missouri shouldn't have worked from day one. And the reason it did is exactly what you said. I mean, it's very clearly been, a prayerful path
Yeah.
that like, oh, this person was equipped to help me. Like God very clearly put this person in my path to support, and still to this day. So
Why do you think God brought Mighty Missouri to pass in your life?
Well, I think that it wasn't to sell coffee. So
right.
I mean, and it's still like very clear right now that God is more interested in the heart. And so there's so many lessons that I've been able to like learn through this, and the people that I've met, and the opportunities it's presented, but mostly it's been accessing my heart, you know, and yeah, I think that's been the whole thing. And there's been like, you know, people have come alongside me, and I'm super thankful. Like, I have a really great team, and I've always been blessed with a really great team. But even for that, like, those people aren't there for me to succeed. It's that I'm on a journey, and that's like God chasing after my heart, really. And I've got a lot more grit now than I did when I started. And I just believe that it's great that our stories have intertwined in some way, like employees and me. But yeah,
It's about the people.
Yeah.
So from, getting on the shelves of Dan's supermarket, then when did the coffee shop open?
So I started in 2012, like incorporated, you know, in 2013 we had the first product, and it was 2016 when we opened a coffee bar at the bike shop.
Yes.
701 Cycle and Sport.
Yep.
And I had a friend who had BC Bagels in the mall, Gateway Mall, and I loved their products. And he and I were working on some, like, he wanted a new location, and so we were kind of like looking at what that might be like. And also some new friends, DJ and Jamie Lee Kramer, were moving back to Bismarck with the dream of opening a coffee shop. So it just felt like there's something going on.
Right.
And I think we all just kind of took hold, and so we jumped into that, which, I mean, honestly, it wasn't a good location, but it was like for me, we were selling coffee to different coffee shops that weren't saying Mighty Missouri. And then maybe if they weren't necessarily doing it correct. Well, not correctly, but, you know, weren't representing it the way that I wanted it to. Because I knew we were doing something fantastic. But I also knew, like, so people would ask, where can we get it? Well, you could try there. You could try like another town, or, you know. And so it was like, to me, a necessary next step.
Yeah.
And I went to a place in Minneapolis called Angry Catfish, and it was a cool coffee bar inside a bike shop. And I thought, oh, it can be done.
Right.
But we're not downtown Minneapolis.
Right.
And so, you know, and I mean, we were with friends. It's super vulnerable to put yourself out there alone, much less with a team.
Right.
And so, I mean, people say the best way to lose a friend is to go into business with them. And so I'm incredibly fortunate that through different failures, because there's been a lot, and I wouldn't even define that as failure, but it's not there any longer.
Right.
And everyone involved is still friends. And I mean, that's like, that is the biggest success story that speaks to all of those people. Yeah.
That's such a gift.
We used to go over there for what was it, like kombucha on tap?
Yeah.
That was like
you never did.
Some of the things
I
Jenaye
did.
loves the kombucha.
What was it? The prickly pear was my favorite.
Yeah. So
I actually just went, well, now you guys have your location in the Y.
Correct.
Wasn't there a cool story behind the like espresso machine? Maybe not.
Well, it's a kind of a cool story, is that to get to the YMCA, first of all, we knew, I mean, the writing was kind of on the wall. This isn't going to be the end thing.
Right.
And so my idea was, this is a stair step. This is a launching point. We're going to prove ourselves here, but this can't be the end thing, which was too bad, because, I mean, there was so much heart and soul into that. The cottonwood, like, we had cottonwood milled in North Dakota, and it's right on the river. Loved it. So that's too bad. But it was a launching point, and the YMCA was looking at, like, they had this unused area, and I guess the conversation had been for a long time, let's put a coffee shop in there. And to their credit, they could have put it, like, had you know, a large chain who's done it a billion times, going really easily, but they said it has to be local. So they went to local places, and I mean, just into that proposal, like, I put everything into it, whatever, you know, and like, man, we swim laps here every day. DJ and Jamie Lee, like, they worked here. They were involved in programs. Like, we want to be a part of this community. And so they let us, they took a huge chance on some kids who were at a little bike shop, you know. Wow. And then there was a coffee company in another small town that had bought all this fancy stuff and kind of overdid it. And so they went out of business, I think. And so we went in there, and we were able to, like, kind of buy the coffee shop that we needed, like, ready to go.
Really?
So yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing.
So cool. I just went there yesterday because I love, you guys do like juices
Yeah.
and smoothies. And I got one of each.
I appreciate it.
I shared it with Josh, but really good. Like, so you have even more than coffee. Like you've expanded some cool things.
And at the Y, I mean, the YMCA is fantastic to work with. They're so community oriented.
Right.
And the people that you meet there, I mean, they have really great programming. Like if it's like the Live Strong or whatever it is, we don't necessarily know where people are coming from. And so that's even changed, how we interact with customers because it's, I believe there's a lot of power in giving people coffee because with coffee, you might be the first person that someone sees in a day. And so you have the power to set someone's day. So, we don't actually get angry customers hardly ever. But when we do, we just say like in our minds, the counter is where that stops because it's catchy, attitudes are catchy, but so are smiles, So we're going to intentionally change that here, give them a smile, but also understanding we don't know where they're coming from. But the power in this interaction is with the smile and,
Right.
And then I've learned that was I'll like I love that idea, but in practice, like as we've grown, we've been afforded more employees and a larger team, and that's like if the power was like to the customer, like that interaction, the interaction with employees is like way more powerful.
Yeah.
Right.
I hear from a lot of like, especially younger entrepreneurs of, I have a dream, but I can't do it in Bismarck, North Dakota, or I can't do it in whatever their present location is, and I have a few friends now that went for it and have done it, like threefold is in our community and they have a very successful, cool business that they've
100%.
done, and for you as well, it's like coffee, there's chains in Bismarck, like, is this going to work? But any word from now, the wise, experienced entrepreneur to maybe younger people who are like, man, I have a dream, but could it work in my context? Or
yeah, I mean, I think it's super important to do market research and to frankly to do like put the least capital injection that you can to test something out. And the arrow that I pointed, like when I started my direction, like that's shifted. And that's part because we're in Bismarck, North Dakota, and we're not in Minneapolis or wherever.
Right.
Like the population isn't going to be drawn to me. So we do have to meet people. And each one of those things is like, it's been like drawing into, is this selling out? Or is this isn't as pure, like the purest idea?
Right.
And so there's a marriage there, a balance there to figure out because we're here. But there's no question you can do something excellent in Bismarck.
Right. Well, I feel like we run into that with the church in some ways of like, if we were in a different context or a different location, would we do church maybe a little bit differently or have a different approach to some things? Would the name of our church be different? You know, but you somebody painted it to me this way. Yeah. I was talking to somebody who said they live in like a 100+ year old home and he's remodeled the whole thing. And he said, but the one thing I can't change that is structural is the staircase. And he's like, so when you move into an old house, you just understand and you learn to love the nuances of the space that you've chosen.
Yeah.
If you built something brand new, like you get to choose, but when you're trying to fit into a context or into something that's already established, you can actually appreciate those nuances and those traditions rather than like trying to revolt against them,
Right.
Yeah. There was an organization that it's no longer around. It was called OTA. And it was for the Oda states, Minnesota, North Dakota, and South Dakota.
That's
and the
brilliant.
idea, Hugh Weber and Sioux Falls started it, and it was like a Bush grant. And the idea was he knows that there are excellent people in this area. We're just separated a little bit. So the idea was to draw people together.
Right.
And when he was going to do an Oda like conference in Bismarck, and so I don't know how he got connected with me, but we just had a meeting and I journaled, like I maintain a journal through this. And like that night I was like, I don't know who he is, but I feel like it was important, you know? And so he has these great speakers come in, national speakers, and but he also wanted one person to represent each state. And he asked me to do Bismarck, and I was like, there's no way. And someone wise told me that you should really think about it because not everyone is afforded an audience. And so I went to Bone Shaker Coffee, and I was like, I'm just going to write. And if I come up with something that I feel like I should say, then I'll say yes. And so I sat for like an hour, and I was like, okay, I'll do it. And so I was like super nervous. I was in theater as a kid. I loved it. I ate it up, but I can't do what you do. So I was just very, very scared. And but fortunately, like as soon as I got like the first laugh, it was okay. Like I'm okay. I'll survive.
Right.
That first laugh is important.
That's important. My goodness. And so that like experience happened, and through that, I was connected to DJ and Jamie Lee, reconnected with some people. They gave me a fantastic mentor, and it's just like that was another example of like, here's an opportunity that's given, and it's like a huge act of, for me, it was a huge act of faith to step into it because it's out of my comfort zone. But when I did it, the reward was here's the important people, and they're still like fantastic friends. And yeah, it's just, that was just another little piece that connects it. Yeah.
One big story that the Lord's just been like penning.
Yeah.
I love it.
So speak a little bit to the people who are listening, who have a dream in their heart, or, you know, maybe want to start a business or a passion, and they put it off for a long time. Maybe they don't know if they're the right person, or they're just waiting for somebody else to like push them. I'm talking to myself right now. Like, you know, we all, many of us have those things, you know, and I mean, any lessons or even just encouragement for somebody who's kind of sitting in that space of what could be, but it's still a dream.
Well, I mean, I would say, honestly, like, you don't need to quit your day job to just jump and into, you know, I mean, there's times when you need to jump, and usually that's not the very first thing you do. Like, a lot of that can just be, I'm frustrated right now with my position, but actually God's going to do something through that situation. So just abandoning ship isn't usually the answer, I don't think, but you should, if something's on your heart, like, I want to do this, I want to create this, or as an artist, or, you know, an act of creativity to build something, I think you should do that, you know, but I don't think that the right answer is to quit everything to write my book. But if you're like called to write a book, you need to write that book. But I think there's ways to begin that process. And in my experience, then, if you honor those small steps, you're going to be met with more opportunity, more platform, and there's no way that Mighty Missouri could handle like the things that we're doing now if we hadn't failed in those small things years ago. Like, it was just critical, unfortunately.
Like, there has to be a trial and a testing. I mean, there kind of has to be a refining to stand. Like you said, you have more grit.
I have more grit because, I mean, I really know that I wasn't afforded like any like freedom from some of those difficulties that a startup faces. I mean, building a brand from nothing, I know, not patting myself on the shoulder, just like, I know now that that's a heavy lift. And making a manufacturing company is like, you know, now I know. But it took a lot of, like, you know, last year was the 10th year in business, and that's like a milestone, but it was hard earned through relationships and stepping in with people, you know, fortunate that people hold my hand sometimes to jump in, but
I also love, like, from a parent perspective, like you said, your dad like invested in you, in your business, but he didn't save you from the hardship. Like, he didn't come like, oh, I'm going to rescue you from all of these like mountains that you're facing, and you had to walk it. Like, I think as a parent, I'm like, that's a good lesson.
I mean, my folks were, and still are, but were very, very supportive of the idea of starting it. But I mean, having a fire in the ceiling of the chimney, like, and being alone, and like that stuff is just stuff you have to get through.
Right.
There was one time,
So manual,
yeah.
literally.
So the science and of the roaster, like the roaster, coffee comes in like green beans. It's the seed of a coffee cherry, and it doesn't smell like coffee. It's just an agricultural product, you know, and all the good flavors and stuff come in when you're roasting coffee, and it's like this big drum. And so the first year I did annual maintenance on my machine, and I did it myself, and I accidentally wrenched this drum like all the way out like this. And then I didn't know what I was doing, so I just screwed it all the way back. And then I put in green beans to start roasting, and green beans just spilled all over the floor. Like it didn't go into and so I called tech support. I'm like, I put them into this hot roaster ready to go, and they're all over the floor now. And he said, oh, what you did is you moved the drum all the way back. So you left a space there in the front, between the front plate, if that makes sense. So they just spilled out the front. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I can bring that back. And they're like, no, you have a big problem because you have organic material spilled onto a burner. So this is where you need to break the gas line right now. And like, whoa, I'm alone. I don't break gas lines. And fortunately, my neighbor was a contractor and was there.
Oh,
and hey, can you help me? So just like weird stuff like that.
Right.
And after that happens, and it's like, you know, shut everything down, avoid disaster. And then I just went to like a diner by myself, just like drinking the coffee like this.
Shaking.
Just like, it was intense.
Right.
You know,
that is very intense.
so it's just in 100 little things like that.
Right.
And like, yeah.
If you knew all the trials, you probably would have never done it. You know,
I would have talked myself out of it.
Right.
And my dad might have too, but I think, yeah.
I think John Maxwell talks about, you know, the best way to chop down a tree is not to just exert yourself and beat the tar out of the blade by hacking and hacking in one day. He's like, if every day you sharpen your blade, you go out at the same time, you swing 5 times, you put it down, you come back tomorrow, you swing 5 more times. Eventually, you know, the tree falls.
Right.
And that's a discipline, you know, and that's like to say no, little by little by little, if you want to build something sustainable.
Right.
Because I think you talked to about like having skin in the game and like your parents not just making it happen for you. And I think those ventures often fail, you know, because people haven't had to put in the work of I'm going to chop today, I'm going to chop tomorrow, I'm going to chop the next day, and that grit.
Right.
Know, is so important. And so even if it stinks right now to who's ever listening, like just little by little
just
every day.
Get up tomorrow and swing that axe.
Yeah,
5 times.
I really do agree with that. I mean, when we started the coffee shop, then you have more personalities involved, and everyone's happy when you're making money. It's when you're not. It's like we have to have conversations and those types of things. But then you're also like buried in debt from the bank now, and all of these things. Like that's every day. I don't even know necessarily when that tree falls, you know, in that analogy, like what, and defining what success looks like is critical, because that's where I've had to shift, is like, I've always thought of it like I'm on a mountain journey, and there's a lot of reasons that analogy works, but everyone's celebrating when you say you're going to climb the mountain, you know, and then you go and pretty soon you're like, oh, I'm all alone. The party was back there. And then you realize
nobody else left base camp.
Nobody else. And I knew that, but it was cool back then. And now I'm like alone, and it seems like maybe I'm under-equipped. Now I'm at the point, you know, 10 years along, where I can kind of start to say like, well, is there a mountain peak? Like, what is that mountain peak? Because Jeff Bezos is flying to the moon. Because there is no mountain peak, you know? And so
that's such a powerful analogy.
Trying to recenter a bit and say, well, what is this about? You know, it's not just to climb because we can climb, you know?
Yeah. Even before you said the Jeff Bezos thing, when you started talking about it, I thought in my mind, I think the mountain high is contentment, and no matter where you're at, I think we've been on that journey too of like, there can always be more. You can always find a reason to either be dissatisfied with what you have or I should work harder, or, maybe the beauty is contentment in what you have and working as hard as you need to. But, I think that's beautiful.
I had a friend who told me once, he was talking about how the Israelites traveled around, in the Old Testament, and they were led by a pillar of fire by night and a cloud by day. And then there was a point where God rested on a mountain and they just camped there. And so you think about like being used to like following the Lord. Oh, the fire's moving. Go, go, go,
Yeah.
to a point where God's just rested on the mountain. And he said, Josh, you have to be just as good with resting at the base of the mountain, knowing there's nothing to fix. There's nothing that you have to create.
Yeah.
Just enjoy what you're in versus like, when's that cloud going to move again?
Yeah.
What's the next thing? And always like,
and that's
throwing
really
it out
hard for
there.
me because I'm always like, what next? When? And
Yeah, I mean, if you have an entrepreneurial spirit, or if you were raised in a family that's like achieving, then that's going to be something in you that you actually have to. Some people need motivated to go; other people need motivated to slow. Just sit at the base of the mountain and be okay. So.
Yeah. Well, I just love this story because I just think highly unlikely from Hazen, North Dakota.
Yeah, I love it.
Mighty Mo. Even like I follow Tiger Lily. On Instagram, they like shout you out. Were you like classmates with them? Are they from Hazen?
They're from Hazen. Yeah. So I was their drummer for short time.
Wow.
A short time. So my
that is crazy.
High school, I was several years older, but my high school band teacher helped them out a lot. He taught their video courses and stuff too.
Man.
And so when they started on like YouTube, it was, they were like viral on YouTube in like middle school. And so he helped them. I mean, he gave them a platform and everything. And so when they were like, North Dakota famous, they needed some help on like Hazen Centennial and stuff. So I helped out whenever I could. And
so funny.
their family was like just down the street. Oh, small town. Everyone's down the street. And so I know them, they've been very kind in shouting out back.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Well, you've heard it all today. 6 to 7 foot cat. No, what kind of fish? Paddlefish.
Paddlefish.
To roasting coffee, to drumming for Tiger Lily. Tiger Lily Gold now.
Yeah, right.
And it's a full send.
Yeah, it's great.
You've done a lot of
put it like that. It makes it sound pretty darn good.
I feel like we are definitely with somebody who is North Dakota famous.
Right, yes.
With that.
Oh man. Well, cool. Thank you for taking the time and sharing your story. It's great.
Yeah, thanks everybody for joining us. Thanks, Brian. And it's fun
pleasure.
just to hear your story and all that you guys are doing. So if you love the conversation, if you think it would help another entrepreneur who's out there or somebody who has a dream in their heart, share it with friends, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.